Hi, I'm Markia.
Wanna hear something scary?
The Haunted Library. We have all had to follow our parents on take your child to work days during school breaks and vacations. But have you ever encountered entities that might want to follow you home from work? The smell of a library is like no other. Books, musty carpet, and the whiff of patrons' past mingle together to create a unique bouquet of memories. An old library was the last place 13-year-old Alexandra Garcia wanted to spend her spring break. But it was either the library or she would have to do beach cleanups or bikes, and Alexandra was an inside kind of girl. She opted for the library because it had Wi-Fi and air conditioning. Alexandra luxuriated in the crisp, artificially cooled air that pumped through the vents. But every now and then, the hairs on her neck stood up when an extra chilly gust of air blew on her out of nowhere. She shivered as her mom looked up from her work. Dotingly, Belinda quickly pulled a sweater from her chair and handed it to her daughter. "Mija, put on a sweater. I don't want you catching a cold." Alexandra rolled her eyes, but took the sweater and headed off to explore the building and maybe find that darn thermostat. Movement caught her eye, and the sound of a giggle near the basement door. Seeing caution tape on the basement door intrigued her. In the basement, she looked down the dark hallways, a faint glow of light behind her. The basement was unlike the rest of the library. The shelves were filled with old relics and papers. She pulled one out. It was a newspaper clipping of a little girl with long dark hair and piercing brown eyes. The headline read, "Local family dies in house fire." In the photo, the girl sat in a family portrait, gazing into the camera. The address of the house was that of the library. The fire appeared to have started in the basement and spread to the rest of the house. The newspaper was dated 50 years ago today. Weirded out, she looked up and finally saw the thermostat. Just as her fingers reached out and touched the temperature gauge, she was shocked on the switch. Ouch! A cold gust of air touched the back of her neck. It felt like tiny, icy hands. Alexandra turned to see a little girl with blunt brown bangs and long dark hair in a sailor dress. She jumped up at Alexandra and pulled her hair while giggling.
"You're gonna play with me forever now."
It was a little girl with piercing brown eyes from the photo.
"It's already started,"
she teased. A long line of shelves suddenly caught on fire, and the alarms began to sound. The halls filled with smoke and flames. Alexandra turned to run, but again she felt cold hands grab at her, firmly holding her ankles. Alexandra screamed for her mother. The fire traveled quickly through the basement shelves, engulfing the stacks of newspapers. Alexandra coughed and yelled as she kicked out at the hands. The ghostly hands refused to let her go. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Smoke filled her lungs. A piece of fiery paper fluttered down and landed on her, singeing the side of her face. She cried and prayed, believing she would suffer the same fate as that family from the newspaper clipping. The little girl ghost had led her to her doom, and it laughed as if it were playing with its favorite toy. Suddenly, there was a blast. There was a fire extinguisher blowing a path through the flames. She looked up to see the silhouette of her mother, Belinda, coming to her rescue. Belinda fired the fire extinguisher at the ghost until the little girl released her hold on Alexandra, who rushed to her mother's side. "Mama!" Belinda wrapped one arm around her daughter as she crouched under the smoke, pressing the sweater against Alexandra's face. They both blindly stumbled back to the upstairs of the library. The fire alarm sounded, shrieking loudly through the building. From there, they ran outside and collapsed on the curb, waiting for the fire trucks to arrive. In the doorway of the building, they could both faintly make out the image of the little girl staring at them as the flames roared around her. Alexandra shivered and looked down at her ankles. There were purple scratch marks where the little girl's hands had held her down. She reached for her mother, who kissed the top of her head and told her as lovingly as only a mother could, "Gracias a Dios, we made it. Next spring break, you're spending that with your abuelita."